Hello everybody, this is Andrei and you are on the Marketing Innovation Podcast Show. Our special guest for today is Matt Gillis, who is the CEO of Clean.io, a company that leads in the prevention of cross-platform malvertising, protecting website publishers and online businesses from malicious ads by blocking coupon provider extensions. Today, we'll discuss about the issues malvertising brings to performance marketers, brands, e-commerce websites, and publishers, as well as how advertisers can increase budgets, return on investment, as well as maintain the good customer experience on sites in 2021 by leveraging software like Clean.io. And here we have Matt Gillis. Hi, Matt. How are you? How's the morning
Andrei,
going?
how are you? Good to be on with you. And this is truly a global podcast with you on the other side of the planet right now.
Yes, that's true. A pleasure meeting today as well. Really excited for our episode together and for the discussion. We briefly had a chance to quickly catch up now, and I think it's going to be a really insightful and really good one. It's the first time on the show where we actually dive deep into these issues that many, advertisers face on a daily basis, really. So really, really keen to hear your thoughts, your experience, maybe some of the case studies that you were faced with and how you were able to help these websites and these marketers to better their marketing results, really. So let's see. Tell us a bit about you. Tell us who you are, where you're from, what's the journey with Clean.io and what you guys do.
Excellent. Well, hey, thanks for having me on. So as you mentioned, I'm the CEO of a company called Clean.io. We protect digital engagements, and we'll talk a lot about that over this podcast. My journey to this role has been a pretty fun and interesting one. I've been in mobile my entire career. So I'm as old as dirt, and I started in this business back in the early 90s in working for the cell phone operators. So I've had kind of like four distinct areas of my career. So I worked for cell phone operators in the early days of the mobile internet on your cell phone. Mm-hmm. Days when you would download ringtones or play games or do any of the things that you do other than make phone calls. And then I've kind of gone on this entrepreneurial journey of, for about 5 years, I was a mobile games publisher. So we created games and entertainment content on mobile devices. I then left that and went into the ads business. And so we did ad monetization for publishers. And I did that for, probably the better part of 8 years at a few different companies where we were a startup and then we were acquired. And lo and behold, I kind of closed out that at Verizon Media, which is, a big telecom company that owns a conglomerate of advertising technology. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest challenges I had when I was in that role, my role was I was responsible for websites and helping them make money, is that we had these things called malvertising. You may have experienced it yourself as a consumer, when you're sometimes on your mobile phone and you're scrolling up and down and all of a sudden it kind of redirects to a page and it says, "Congratulations, Andrei, you won an Amazon gift card," or click here to spin the wheel, or take this survey and once you complete it, you'll be entered to win something. That's called malvertising. It was one of the banes of my existence in my last role. And so when I had left my job at Verizon Media and was taking some time off, I ran into a few guys that had started to build this company called Clean Creative, which was the predecessor to Clean.io. And they were headed out to solve this problem of malvertising. And so very curious and obviously had never seen anybody really truly solve it. And so that's how I landed where I am today. And I've been doing it now. Our company's been around for about 3 years. I've been in the role as CEO here for about 2 years now. And it's been an amazing journey to see a team and a product kind of build over time. And I'm Canadian, so I love hockey sticks, and we've had hockey stick-like growth. And so it's been super cool. And it's really just the start of our journey in protecting websites and user engagements from malicious and untrusted code.
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay. So what challenges do you see today? Like, what are some of the most encountered scenarios where somebody would be the victim of malvertising? Let's say maybe depending on the industries or depending on the niches, what's the most occurring case for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I love to do is to take a step back and remember that we're all consumers, right? So even though we work in this business and you work in marketing and I work, in cybersecurity, we're also consumers who, rely on our mobile devices. We're on them all day, every day. It's the first thing we wake up and look at in the morning, and it's the last thing we tune out in the evening. And this challenge related to malvertising, it's been a long-standing issue, right? I mean, you go to many websites and it's not something that happens all day, every day. And I think the reason behind that is you need to look at the motive and who is actually the person that's behind these malicious campaigns that are destroying user experiences and destroying revenue. So it's one of those things where these bad actors, right? So you represent a lot of good marketers, and there's tons of good marketers on the planet. The reality is malvertising is really conducted by bad actors who are also advertisers, and they're bad advertisers. They're advertisers that are seeking to engage with users. They've got offers that they're trying to get users to complete, and they're using malicious technologies to really establish those connections. If you think about normal marketers, normal real marketers, they'll buy 1,000 ads on a page and they'll hope to get a 0.5% click-through rate, and a 0.5% click-through rate, 5 in 1,000, that would be amazing, right? Well, malvertisers, because of their sophistication, they have figured out how to buy that same ad and effectively get 100% click-through rate. So this problem exists because of the economics. These folks have figured out how to buy an ad, how to get 100% click-through rate, and how to get that user to land on that page. And they can target them very effectively, and they can put beautiful looking creatives in front of them and really, inspire engagement. Probably not from you or from me, but like my mom probably would click on those sort of ads. She would be, deceived to click on those sort of things. So, in the sense of like, what is malvertising, what's happening, a lot of it kind of rears its ugly head in these form of malicious redirects, where it kind of takes over the page, takes over the user experience, either drives the user to fill out a survey, complete a survey, give their personally identifiable information, either give their email address or their phone number or some sort of information that they want to capture, or usually drive the user to kind of click into the App Store in an automated fashion to download an app. So it's usually kind of one of those behaviors. And the behavior of choice really depends on what action the malicious advertiser is trying to engage.
And what control do companies or these websites that are the victims of malvertising, what control do they have over limiting this? If, let's say, they are not using any software, they just have a website, how are they falling victims for this?
Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge of the programmatic media ecosystem. So I'm sure you're familiar with programmatic, where impressions are bought and sold in via algorithms, and it's an open ecosystem, right? So anybody can go and get a seat on a demand side platform and set up campaigns and start to buy ads. And you can buy ads on some of the biggest websites on the planet. And so if you are a website owner, so let's just say you're a publisher and you're trying to monetize, you have ad placements set up on your website, and your goal is to bring in the maximum amount of demand, because when you bring in that maximum amount of demand, that creates demand density, which drives price up, which obviously creates fill rate and all of the metrics and the KPIs that any website publisher would live by, right? It's their livelihood. And so the programmatic media ecosystem has kind of created this back door where bad actors now have, open season to be able to access end users on some of the biggest websites on the planet. Websites that you would normally have thought, back in the olden days, if you want to call it that, where you would have had to, write an insertion order and you would be clearly vetted before any ads run. And usually it's big brands that are writing insertion orders. These bad actors now with, a dime can go and get, a seat on a demand side platform and just start buying and inject their code. And usually what these guys do is they have very sophisticated economics where it's a game of arbitrage, where they know that if they can buy a certain amount of ads for a certain price, they can usually get a multiple of that number in a return on their investment. So, it's really the programmatic ecosystem that has enabled this open access for. And by the way, there's a ton of great things that have come from the programmatic ecosystem, right? I mean, obviously, publishers and end users. I mean, end users are getting very targeted ads, and that makes the user experience much better. But it has created this window of opportunity for bad actors to really kind of creep in the back door and start to conduct malicious actions.
Okay. So let's say somebody identifies that they are the victim of malicious software like this, or malicious actors that damage their users' experience on their websites. So you identify this problem, and then you together with the team grew Clean.io so that you can help these guys clean up their platforms. How do you do it? What's the journey? How does the system work? Maybe even let's generalize it and say, maybe start from the general scenario and tell what you do, like what somebody like you do, and then specifically what you guys do, so that we can all have a good understanding of how to best think about protecting ourselves when it comes to malicious software or malicious actors like these ones.
Yeah, maybe I'll start back how people used to do it and how some still do it and how it's ineffective. And that's how kind of we ended up where we are. That's the very early stages of folks that tried to prevent these malicious behaviors. What they would do is they would scan creatives in an offline environment to see if it exhibited malicious behavior. And by the way, back in the early days when the bad guys weren't so sophisticated, like they would be able to catch that sort of stuff. Well, what happened is bad actors have figured out how to fingerprint and understand if they're in an offline environment or they're being scanned to not exhibit the malicious behavior. So that methodology kind of proved to be an ineffective way to try to solve the problem. The next wave of folks that really have tried to solve this problem really try and anchor it around what we would call like URL block listing. Basically, known malicious URLs, you would put them onto a block list. And if a buyer was exhibiting behavior that is tied to that malicious URL, you would prevent that person from buying that ad, and therefore, obviously block any hopefully block malicious activity from happening. The bad actors have figured their way around this. Obviously, they can change their URLs every 5 minutes now, right? Bad actors can change their URLs and make them unique for every end user if they wanted to, which makes that that approach ineffective. It also, the challenge with URL block lists means that something bad has to happen, and the software provider has to capture that URL to put it on a block list, right? You can't, and by the way, if you start, trying to automate or become what I would say probabilistic methodologies, like saying like, well, this URL looks like it could be malicious, so let's put it on the block list. What happens is you end up with a ton of false positives, and then you're actually blocking real revenue. Right. And so there's a whole bunch of concerns around URL block listing that kind of, I would say, one, make it ineffective, two, make it predisposed to, false positives and actually costing real revenue. The solution that we came up with, which I think was, is obviously very unique, it's behavioral analysis. What we do is we give our partners a single line of JavaScript. They put it at the head of their page. And that is the first thing that loads when the page loads. And by the way, everything that we do is on real humans, real devices, real networks, right? That's the only way to catch bad guys. Now, marketers that probably listen to your podcast, the fraud that they think about are things like invalid traffic and bots and viewability and all these other things, right? Well, by the time our software is running, all of those technologies have basically run their processes to determine that everything that we're running on is, generally speaking, a real human, real device, real network. Bad actors, as you can imagine, they're sophisticated. They wouldn't want to buy bot traffic or invalid traffic because they're looking for a real user engagement. And so what our solution does is a single line of JavaScript. We're analyzing the execution of JavaScript at runtime. When we see an ad get purchased and an ad start to render on a website, if that ad starts to do malicious activity, what we do is we block the malicious activity. We don't block the bad actor from buying the ad. One of the big things that we felt that the only way we were going to be successful with this technology was that if there was a financial disincentive for the bad actor to do what they're doing. In every other solution prior to us, there was almost to use a terrible American baseball analogy, there was almost like a free at bat. Like the bad actor could try something, and if it worked, great, and if they got blocked, well, it didn't cost them any money. So then they could change their tactics and try something new. With our software, we actually let them buy. That means that they've bought an ad. That means that they are committed. That means that ad renders, and the thing that they truly bought, which was the impression and the render, they have to pay for that. Bad actor, because they've paid for that, they are hoping to get ROI. what we do is we block that malicious activity from happening after that ad renders. And because we do that, the user never gets redirected to that malicious page that says, "Congratulations, Andrei, you won an Amazon gift card." So first off, we've made sure that the user experience has been preserved, that the user experience is awesome. Because the user never lands on that "Congratulations, you won an Amazon gift card" page, the bad actor doesn't get an opportunity for ROI. And so earlier in the podcast, I said these guys are the most sophisticated performance marketers on the planet. So anyone that's a listener of your podcast that's a good advertiser, right? What you're hoping for is ROI. You're hoping that if you buy an ad, you get an engagement, and that engagement turns into either a sale or a click or a call or whatever the metric is that the advertiser is seeking. In this case, because these guys are the most sophisticated performance marketers on the planet, if it doesn't turn into an engagement, what do sophisticated performance marketers do if they get no engagements? They change it up and they block that site and they no longer buy from that site. Right. And so if you were a performance marketer and you were buying media across a whole bunch of sites and a whole bunch of them were giving you no engagement, you'd actually say, let's stop buying on those sites. Let's start buying on these sites. And so what truly our software does is, it gives our sites that have our protection, the bad actors actually go elsewhere. And so that's kind of the secret sauce about what we do and why it works and why we're different than anybody else. And so, many people who use our software will tell you that because we do a 30-day free trial, so any website can come on that has ads and they put our software on their page for 30 days. And you'll see that during that first 30 days, there's always some malicious activity. Right? There's usually a pulse of malicious activity. Sometimes there are spikes, like this past weekend, which was, the weekend of Thanksgiving here in the US and, kind of bookended with, Black Friday and Cyber Monday. On Sunday, there was an attack. And so many folks saw an escalation in threat level on Sunday. But generally speaking, what they'll see is that over time, the longer you have our protection, the less, kind of spikes in malicious activity that you see on sites that are protected by us.
Yeah, because the malicious software, like malicious, advertisers, they would lose money and then they would go to another site. Okay, yep. That makes perfect sense.
Yep.
Super. So let's see. Now we presented to everybody how this thing works. Is there a way, would somebody know already if they had such ads, or can they fall victim without knowing? How is typically this issue being detected? Is it the customers that complain? Is it somebody randomly discovering it? Are there tests that should be carrying out on a frequent basis to ensure you don't have such advertisers if you are open to programmatic advertising as a website?
I would say all of the above. So let's tackle it in two areas, right? So if you're an advertiser, right, obviously you're hoping that the websites that you're buying on have various levels of protection, whether that's invalid traffic or prevention from bots, or hopefully giving a high level of viewability. When one of these things happens, as you know, if you're on a mobile device and you're on your favorite website and you're scrolling, there's usually not just one ad on the page. There's multiple ads on the page. And so advertisers, if you think about it, if there are 4 ads on the page, the bad actor isn't buying all 4. Right? The bad actor is intent on arbitraging the site. So they're going to buy probably the lowest cost one that they can, that can kind of create that unique takeover of the device. That means that there are 3 other advertisers that bought ads on that page, that because that user was hijacked and taken away to another website, those ads are no longer engageable. Because as you know, I'm sure it's happened to you as a user, you can't hit the back button because the bad guys have disabled the back button. You can't hit the close button. You can't get back to where you were very easily. Sometimes you actually have to reboot your phone or actually close your browser down and get back to the page that you're on. And so for advertisers, my gut says that during times of increased malicious behavior, you would probably see a deterioration in things like your CTR and those sort of KPIs. As a website publisher, there's probably more metrics that you would know, right? And so, some of our folks that actually are our customers, when we first launched, we didn't even have a reporting dashboard. Publishers, when we asked them what were the kind of top 3 things that they wanted us to do, they said, I want effectiveness, effectiveness, and effectiveness. Like a dashboard that kind of gives them, a CT scan of what's going on their website. They've got tons of dashboards. They've got Google Analytics. They've got tons of places they can go to check out what's happening on their website. And so the first folks that we actually partnered with, almost 3 years ago, what we said to them was, look at your KPIs when our software is not on your page. Like, run an A/B test. When our software is not on your page, look at the KPIs that you would actually look at every day. What is your session time? What is your session length? Number of ads you serve per unique user? Like, all of those sort of KPIs that actually power the economics of your website. Tell me when those are disrupted. And when those are disrupted, then put our software on your page and watch them recover. So we had folks that had a typical time on site of 8 minutes, right? And that means that a user would spend 8 minutes scrolling, 3 or 4 stories and reading or consuming photo galleries or whatever users do on their mobile phones. During that 8-minute period, you would serve an average of, 42 ads per session. When these sites were under attack, they would see those KPIs decline. They would see average time on site go from 8 minutes to 1 minute. They would see number of ads served per unique user go from 42 to 6. And so very quickly, most folks, the very sophisticated folks in the ecosystem, understood the economic damage that this can do to your website, not to mention the almost irreparable harm of the end user experience and how destructive that is, right? So you look at it, there's economic harm and then there's end user experience harm. And in my mind, economic harm, we can all recover from that. End user experience harm, it's hard to put a price tag on that. Yep. That person may never come back to your website. Creating content is very expensive. Driving user traffic to your website is very expensive, right? And so if you've done those two really hard things and you now have that user on your website, God, preserve that user experience and make sure that that's not disrupted. The last thing I would say is, you said, how do you know if you have a problem or not? Well, one, we'll give you 30 days and you can figure it out. We'll show you all the, all the things. And we have a dashboard now. But I think some cases, one, we often hear two things. One, your users are going to tell you, right? If you have a problem and it's bad, your users are either going to send you emails, they're going to flame you on Twitter, they're going to do whatever they can to let you know that you have a problem. Some folks, obviously have traffic that comes through Facebook. Facebook obviously has a great ecosystem where people can type comments and they'll get comments of hey, you've got crazy ads that are disrupting your user experience. The second thing is most people tell me yeah, my CEO was on our website and he saw this. And so, or she saw that. And so, that's, it usually happens in that way where the CEO is on there and she's, surfing around and she's like, oh, that's a terrible user experience. And then someone gets yelled at. So, it's you're either users are yelling at you or your management team is yelling at you. And so you can't win either way unless you have our software.
Got you. Okay. So this was very insightful in terms of, the advertisers. Now, let's go a bit into the extensions and the other side of, let's say, malicious software that can occur or disrupt the user experience. So I know we were discussing about Honey a bit just before we started recording, but, I would like to hear your thoughts and your insight into what's out there and what's bad and why, and how can, businesses limit the impact.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things about our company, obviously we're global scale company. We run on, our software runs on about 7 million websites right now. Right. And so we have census of the internet level data. We know what's happening out there, on big, massively global ComScore top 10 websites, and we know what's happening on the body and tail, right? So we protect kind of, everything in everything in between. Our core business started out preventing malicious ads originating from, malicious activity originating from malicious ads. We started to see, and by the way, in that business line, everything is deterministic. Meaning we know exactly the place of origin, what the supply side platform is, where that bad actor, bought their ad, what demand side platforms see that they were buying from. We can basically point it back. We call it a smoking gun. So we have a smoking gun on every bad threat that happens in the ecosystem where our software is. What we started to see was bad actors start to shift their behaviors, not necessarily from buying through programmatic media, but also using what we would call client-side injections to initiate their malicious behavior. Mm-hmm. Those client-side injections could happen from, a rogue Chrome extension that you've downloaded and you forgot about it, and it's sitting on your laptop, and all of a sudden, it's been hacked or hijacked, and they're using that as a slave to inject malicious activity through Chrome extensions or whatnot. We started doing a bunch of research around these extensions, and what we started to see, not every one of our partners only monetizes through ads. We've got folks that monetize through ads. We've got folks that monetize through e-commerce, right? In the same sort of site and same sort of environment. Mm-hmm. And we started seeing these client-side injections happening through these compromised Chrome extensions. When we started to do a whole bunch of more research, what we actually noticed was there's a whole bunch of Chrome extensions and Safari extensions and Firefox extensions that one might deem to be like quote unquote trusted, meaning like the end user really wanted that Chrome extension on their laptop, but the website owner may not want that Chrome extension to be interacting with the user experience on the website. We firmly believe that, if you are a website owner, whether you're a publisher, whether you're an e-commerce site, like you own your website, you should be able to control everything that happens on your website. You should be able to control the user experience. You should be able to make sure that, things don't happen that impact your revenue or your brand reputation or any of that sort of stuff. Like it's your website, you should have those controls. What's happened is, there's a lot of software out there that actually takes that control away from you. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we've noticed specifically in the e-commerce ecosystem that takes that control away from you is these extensions that power the automation of discounting. Things like Honey and Wikibuy. They are, if you're not familiar with Honey or Wikibuy, they're Chrome extensions or Safari or Firefox extensions that sit resident on your laptop or your PC. And when you get to checkout at an e-commerce merchant, up pops a little box and it says, hey, it's Honey, I'm here, hit okay, and I will try and throw in a whole bunch of promo codes at checkout, and hopefully I'll save you some money. As an end user, this is awesome, right? Because it's kind of like rolling the dice, and you may get a 25% off discount, or you may not, but it's kind of fun to watch it do its magic, and lo and behold, you may get a big discount. Mm-hmm. What this has done to merchants is almost irreparable harm. Merchants have lost control of discounting. Honey and Wikibuy and the various other extensions are now scraping codes up off the internet. And when you, as a merchant, have given a code that you really intended for a single purpose, for a single user to experience, one of the ones that I actually see these days is codes that are designed for first responders. Obviously, we're in COVID right now. It's December of 2020 when this podcast is being recorded. And many websites have said, like, if you're a first responder, come to my website and you'll get 20% off. And use that code of first responder 20 or whatever that unique code that they've given. Well, what Honey does is, let's just say I am a first responder and I go in and I've got Honey on my machine and I type in first responder 20 at checkout. I deserve that code. That's great. I should get 20% off if I'm a first responder. The first thing Honey does is it pops up and says, we got more codes. Would you like us to try them? When you hit okay, the first thing they do is they scrape that code out and they catalog it and they use it for everybody else that comes after me. And so that means that people who aren't first responders are now eligible to get a first responder 20% off discount if that's what the merchant had gone out the door with. Mm-hmm. What that really does is, one, that, kind of like it becomes the Wild West of promo codes, right? Any promo code is now available for everybody. And the worst part is it's at the highest level. So like, one of the, when we're in closed beta right now, by the time this podcast gets out there, we'll probably be in general availability. Mm-hmm. But we've heard horror stories from a ton of merchants about the damages that Honey and Wikibuy and the various discount codes have done to their business. Many folks, buy ads and use exclusive or unique promo codes to try and track, where a lead or where a purchase came from. This actually clouds all of that. It actually makes most marketing immeasurable because that code that you used for that podcaster, or that code that you used for that YouTuber, or that code that you used for that Instagram influencer is now available to everybody. So let's just say you went and did an Instagram influencer code that was, I don't know, let's say they have a really loyal following. Let's just say you're a vitamins company and you wanted to go and partner with the most famous triathlete on the planet. And by the way, this is a real life example because we had a vitamins company tell us this story. And they went and partnered with a triathlete who had, I think, 50,000 followers on Instagram, which is pretty big. That person put that code in, and probably one of their followers actually used that code. That code then got sucked up by Honey, so it got scraped and put into Honey. And so what they were doing is they were looking at their analytics for their marketing campaigns, and they're like, holy geez, like we really figured it out. This guy has like this many followers, and oh my gosh, he generated like 400 sales last week. Like, oh my gosh, like how do we go out and repeat this? Well, lo and behold, it was Honey that took the coupon and now applied it to anybody who came to their site, regardless of whether they were connected or knew of this influencer. Mm-hmm. And so it really has destructive tendencies to revenue, because now everybody gets access to that discount. So let's just say it was a 20 or 30% off discount and your average order was $100. You've now lost $20 to $30 per sale. You're probably now paying affiliate fees, and you've got to pay fees to these influencers who've actually, quote unquote, driven the sale when they truly didn't drive the sale. And then not to mention, you sit here and you go, oh my gosh, how do we plan our marketing? What podcasts should we buy that are effective? Or what influencers should we partner with that are effective? It really makes it impossible from a measurement perspective for marketers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very bad, actually. Now that you put it in perspective, I think. So is there a way for maybe like the folks out here that are tuned in and maybe they are responsible for e-commerce websites or e-commerce businesses, is there a way for them to audit first if their codes are maliciously being used by, let's say, Honey? Because I mean, Honey is popular in the UK, it's in Europe as well. I think, most people know about it. I think there is a chance that if you have a medium-sized, at least, if not big e-commerce, your users might be using that for your website. So what are some ways to audit at least and see if they're...
Well, listen, there's no better way to audit than become a user of each of those services, right? So it's free to download. Download the extensions and put them on your PC and go to your own website and have a look at what Honey is applying and how it's applying. And by the way, if you look at, we said earlier in the podcast about on the malvertising side how we launched without a reporting dashboard, mm-hmm. right? Most of these marketers have reporting dashboards. They're probably looking at something every day, right? Mm-hmm. I'll tell you one merchant that I reached out to. They had a code that was tied to a sponsorship of a basketball team. And that code was only ever spoken about in a very small crawl that ran across the bottom of the screen. And it said, hey, go and buy, get 30% off, type in the code MAGIC at checkout. Well, guess what? Guess what their top redeemed code was in the month of July of this year? Of course, it was MAGIC, right? Now, guess what? That basketball team does not have that many fans. Mm-hmm. There's no way, so I think if the phrase is if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Like if you've got codes that have taken off, you should probably, just in your gut, if in your gut it feels a little weird or looks wrong, what you ought to do is you ought to maybe turn some of them off for a day. Mm-hmm. Now, what this merchant did was they shut that one off. Well, guess what? When they shut that one off, that was 30%. They had two other codes that were valid that were 25%. And those then popped up to be the most used codes. And so that will start to give you an understanding of if you just want to, on your own, go out and do your own analytics of what's going on. But with us, we're in a closed beta right now. We've got about 20 merchants that are using our software, and we're giving them reports so that they can understand. We give them analytics so they can see what are the most impacted codes. What are the most prevalent discount engines that are loading on your end users' machines when they're at checkout. And how is it impacting conversion rates and all that sort of stuff. So, what I would say is go to our website. If you're a merchant and you want more information and you want to actually go into our trial, you can go to blockcouponextensions.com and that will redirect you to our website. And that will take you right to the point where you can actually see more and hear more about what we're doing and how we're helping merchants really get control of the website that they own and also get control of their revenue and their discounting. And, the one thing I will say is that, there's very few things out there that can help you grow your revenue without actually growing your sales. And I think we're one of them, right? So this revenue, if you think about it, the person's at checkout, they're probably going to convert. And I know there's a whole bunch of folks that abandon carts at checkout and that sort of thing. But think about this analogy. Like if you're at the grocery store and you've got your groceries loaded on that conveyor belt, imagine if there was someone standing beside the checkout that had a mitt full of coupons that was going to hand them to you at checkout. You'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess we'll try all those coupons. And if you save 30%, how great would that be as a shopper? Well, if you're the grocery store, God, you would not let someone come and stand right beside checkout and start to redeem and destroy your revenue. So I think really it's about merchants getting control of the user experience on their website and really, growing their revenue without actually growing sales.
Yeah, big time. And also, like, if you think about traditional e-commerce, like goods, probably even if it's 5%, that's probably like between 5 and 10% is like your cost of acquisition for marketing. If you were to think about it that way, like certainly it's a big budget saver here. So if you guys, I would actually recommend you guys tuning in that have e-commerce websites, have a look at this. And I guess even if you identify one code that has been maliciously used, you probably have saved up for, like a lot of money.
Well, I think you're spot on, Andrei, because the reality is let's just say it's 20% off. Even and you say 5%. For math, let's do 20% because it's easy. If you had $100 average order value, and you can prevent a $20 loss of revenue, that effectively is $20 more that you can then go out and spend to drive incremental traffic to your website, incremental purchases, right? And so some of what Honey is doing is that they're just stealing attribution for the sales that may have already or would have already happened on your website. And so you're getting hit with that revenue reduction, and you're paying affiliate fees and whatnot on that transaction. I mean, we think like get control of your website. You'll have $20 more to go out and market and drive real net new incremental users to your website. That's a lot of money, for a merchant.
Super. Yeah, man, that was a very good, very good talk. So let's see. Now that we have people, most marketing leaders on the show, and probably also entrepreneurs are looking at, sketching their strategy or finalizing the strategy for 2021. We are living very, different times than previous years. So I think it's very important for everybody to be able to have a plan that they can stick to, at least for the first couple of months, until the world hopefully is going to get back to some sort of normal. Right. So let's see how we can help them best inform their decisions further. So we have discussed about some actionable points here already about what they can do to audit what's going on in parts of the business or the marketing system that maybe they haven't looked into in depth so far, maybe. So let's see if we were to have a 3 points checklist of very important things that they can do this weekend or this end of the week to maybe improve their performance for 2021. What would be your top 3 advice points, let's say?
Listen, my probably number 1, 2, and 3 is what gets measured gets managed. Right. And so measure everything. If it, whether you're in, a publisher and you're in, you're looking for malvertising protection, measure, right? Measure impacts to revenue and to user experience and to all those sort of things, and then solve those problems. And the same thing on the marketer side. What gets measured gets managed. I would say ask lots of questions. Ask lots of questions of your agency or your affiliate agency or anyone that you're working with in that transaction flow. And by the way, in questioning everything, I think you're probably going to get a lot smarter about what is really happening on your website. I think as we've kind of ventured into this this new business, right, for us, right, it's e-commerce is a totally new ecosystem for us. We're learning a ton about the varying sophistication of e-commerce merchants, and we're learning that there are some that are incredibly sophisticated and they understand everything about their what's happening in their user journeys that are on their site, and they know exactly the harm that things like Honey and WikiBuy and whatnot are impacting on their site. And then I think that there's another class of folks who, and I wouldn't say it's naivete, but they believe the data, right? And so, one of the merchants that we spoke to, they were getting ready to make their 2021 plan as they started partnering with us, and they had a problem where they actually had sponsored a podcast, and that podcast had actually turned in. They had a code for their product on the podcast, and that podcast, in their mind, was magically successful. Like, it was driving tons of sales. And they sat down and they were about to make a very big decision for the rest of their marketing plan for 21 to like take out sponsorships on a whole bunch of podcasts. And lo and behold, when they actually started questioning the data and really understanding the whys around the data, that's when they really uncovered that, oh my gosh, like Honey and Wikibuy are really the culprits here. This podcast is not that effective of a marketing platform for us. Wishful thinking, right? As a marketer, you always hope to find that silver bullet, right? Like I think, like, I've been a marketer in my past. Gosh, you want that one thing that shows that rapid takeoff of your product and your sales, and that you can make repeatable. And I think the challenge that we've seen with merchants that are impacted by Honey and Wikibuy is the data is somewhat lying to them. The data is somewhat telling them a story that leads them to believe that what they're getting is incremental, and what they're getting is truly tied to the performance of those two. Like how well those things perform. And I think it couldn't be further from the truth. So I would just say, what gets measured gets managed, and ask lots of questions. Doubt everything. Challenge everything, because I think that's the only way you're going to truly get to the bottom of what works and what doesn't.
Super, super good advice. Okay, so let's see now for the people that would like to find out more about you, maybe personally, or about the business. Obviously, we'll have the links in the description of this episode as well. So you guys tuning in, you can go and check out directly Clean.io, maybe sign up for a free trial to audit what's going on your website. But Matt, if somebody wants to discuss with you personally, like either for business purposes or to pick your brains on some sort of idea that maybe you can work together on, what's the best platform that they can reach out to you?
Yeah, by all means, I'm an active LinkedIn user. So I think anybody should, you ought to connect with me on LinkedIn. Welcome all those connections. And if you've got, opportunities that you want to discuss, you can send me a LinkedIn message on there after we've connected. Or you can just send me an email. My email is matt, M-A-T-T, @clean.io. So it's super simple. I would say love to hear from any and all of your listeners. And if there are ways that we can help, and if you've got a problem, we love big, meaty problems. So, let us know how we can be helpful.
Awesome. Matt, thanks so much for being on the show. So guys, I hope, and we hope actually, that you had a good time here and you learned something new. Obviously, so everybody that we discussed in terms of companies and add-ons and everything, they are, good for maybe the consumers, but for your business, they might not be so good. So, trying to be objective here, but have a look, because you might be able to, to increase your bottom line profits, and, why not make 2021 the best year that you've had so far. So, Matt, thanks so much again for all the insight. It was a real pleasure. Let's follow up on the discussion. And you guys, if you feel you'd like us to cover something in more depth, or you have questions for Matt or for myself, as always, be comfortable getting in touch. We'll have the details for Matt and for Clean.io in the description of this episode as well. And best of luck with all the planning and all the all the fun for 2021 and for Christmas. Why not? Because it's just around the corner.
Right on. Yeah. Best of luck to you. And maybe we'll come back once we're out of closed beta. As I said, we got 20 merchants that are experiencing the benefits of it right now on the e-commerce side. And I expect it to be, a very successful product that I think we're going to have a lot of great insights to bring to your marketers and talk about, and ways that they can, grow their revenue and really own the user experience that users have on their various websites.
Super. Sounds good. I'm really excited. Let's stay tuned and let's stay connected on LinkedIn as well. So, Matt,
excellent.
Best of luck with everything. Thanks again for being on the show. And until next time, keep rocking it. Have an awesome one.
Cheers, Andrei.
Thank you.